and that was the one that he eventually stuck to.
Yes, sir.
At the end. And from what my understanding is, because of a combination of a lack of work ethic on the part of local police here and a couple of other factors, this case was eventually ruled a suicide based on an old suicide note that Doug had kept, that it was written back at some point during the height of Lorissa's addiction to OxyContin while she was still living in Florida. Is that correct?
That's correct. And it was done after Child Services came in and removed her son from the house.
Yeah.
That Lorissa said she had nothing else to live for. Her parents were gone. She had lost her son, and there she didn't get her son back, that she was going to take her own life. And it was agreed by Doug and Larissa's brother Rennet that it would be a group suicide. It was a letter. I personally saw the letter when I was down in Florida, but Lorissa had really no intentions of going through with that. It was more so literally a cry for help, because she just really wanted her son back. But again, like you said, Doug kept the letter. And upon police entering the apartment in Waverly, Doug presented that letter to the police officers, and the letter was in pristine condition. It had no bloodstains on it, no anything, and I'm assuming that it was, if indeed Lorissa left it, she left it in an open enough spot that Doug could put his hands right on it before the police even walked into the door. Again, Doug was covered in blood, but the note was not.
The note was not covered in blood. Take a mental picture of how ridiculous that sounds. For somebody, I mean, there have been countless documented cases of suicide by the method that we're discussing here, and the suicide letters have always been a complete mess. And we're kind of drawing to a close on this, but just to sum everything up here at the end, it's my understanding that at some point after the incident, you were in phone contact with Doug while you were still in prison, and he said something to you. Did you get into that?
We had a conversation, I believe it was about a week after the incident. The actual date was November 9th. The time was roughly around 9:10 p.m. And Doug wanted to know how my appeal was coming, and I told Doug it looked like at that time that I would be home in April, and I asked Doug not to go anywhere, that I would be home in April. Doug stayed right on the phone to me, and these phone conversations are recorded in the prison.
Yes.
Doug stated to me right then on the phone, goes, "No, I gotta get out of here. I'm going to be gone because I know what you're going to do to me because of what I did to Lorissa."
Because of what he did to Lorissa. Please continue.
At that point, he began cussing me out, yelling and screaming, and he hung up on me. I immediately went to the CO's office, the correctional officer's office, and requested that that tape be pulled and sent to the Waverly Police Department. That basically Doug at that point had, admitted to murdering Lorissa. The next day I met with some officials, or an official from the Federal Correctional Institute at Gilmore camp, and they informed me that the federal government did not interfere with state issues.
Yes.
And they would not pull that tape.
Yeah. Well, just for everybody's general information here, federal officials are required to be American citizens, and even though it's stated in certain statutes, I believe that the federal, they can't directly interfere with a state matter. I do believe there are laws out there stating that any witness to a crime or to a confession of a crime can be subpoenaed and can be required to come forward by virtue of otherwise becoming an accessory to murder, I would assume. I mean, suppressing that information is a serious violation, and this is all hinging on the assumption that a a federal agent is apparently above the law on something that is generally handled by the states. But to my understanding, Doug ended up skipping town soon after. Correct.
Correct. Again, I had informed Doug that I would look like I would be the first of April. If not April 1st, April 2nd. Doug, without informing Glenn that he was quitting his job or to anyone else, left the town of Waverly, and basically there have been rumors of where he's been at, from Cincinnati, Ohio to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina to Wilson, North Carolina, but he left no forwarding address. He did not tell anyone he was leaving. He just left.
But it's pretty well established that it's likely that he's no longer in the state of Virginia, so that instantaneously becomes a federal matter if this case gets reopened, because you've crossed state borders, you have to get extradition, and that's a federal department. So, in conclusion, we can basically come to the understanding here that we have a admitted killer running free in this country, and we have a federal government that does nothing about this, but are perfectly fine with allowing somebody to spend 5 years locked in a cage based on what is known as paper violation. And although, this is much more Lorissa's story than it is yours, it should be noted for the record that no individual person is an island unto themselves. Everybody, what people do affect each other. Good deeds, poor deeds, all go into the mix. And via secondary causation, if we had a federal government that abided by the letter of the law as they have written it through our elected representatives, this would not have happened. No, sir. So I think it's time we pay a little visit to the Waverly Police Department. What do you think?
Sounds good to me.
All right. Thank you very much, David.
Thank you, John.